surprise, mother.
Continuing the trend of talking about games that everybody and their dog knows that aren't old enough to be forgotten or nostalgic, thus rendering the video essentially pointless until, say, 5 to 10 years from now. BioShock is a shooter from 2007 created by the people at Irrational Games as a more accessible spiritual successor to System Shock 2. The game was also published by 2K, but I'm not getting into that. This game is always offline, so don't worry about it. The point was to create a similar experience, maybe a bit too similar, while stripping down the robust RPG mechanics from their previous title for the sake of expanding into the console market. Before talking about any of this, I want to address the elephant in the room. Original or remastered? Honestly, I don't know. They both had their share of problems when installing them on two different machines, but eventually both worked just fine without any need for mods or fixes. The original seems to have better atmospheric lighting, at least in the intro, but that takes a back seat later anyway. At the same time, things just seem a lot closer to your face in the original compared to the remaster. The remaster has smoother textures, jellyfish, and Steam achievements though. It also has the challenge runs, director's commentary and survivor mode, but also the gamma slider doesn't work, and my headphones volume control toggles the menu on or off, so I don't know. Go with whatever you can get your hands on, I guess, but I'll be talking about and showing the remaster in this video. For a game from 2007, the environments hold up pretty well. The game captures the feel of a steampunk version of 40s America. From the classy restaurants to the theaters, museums, and outdoors, it all looks the part all these years later, being held up by the stylized assets and the good texture work. But this isn't just any ordinary metropolis. This is Rapture, baby, and Rapture was built on the bottom of the freaking Atlantic Ocean, and it never quite lets you forget it. And while the environments themselves are important, what tops them is, of course, the propaganda. Andrew Ryan's Rapture is an ultra-capitalistic, objectivist utopia, and you're reminded of this every step of the way, from ads for their ill-gotten revolutionary tech to propaganda about the civil war going on. The background storytelling starts up immediately and in full force. As for the tone, the game fluctuates a bit between classy exploration sections and intense action-heavy moments. But the main feeling you'll get throughout is that of horror. It all gels together to create a very stagey sort of atmosphere.
You're crawling! You're sick!
Where BioShock shows some crow's feet, however, is with the character models, and while they try to do their best to hide these shortcomings, at least with the important characters, you don't really want to stick around and admire the splicer models or the little sisters too much. I'm not sure that's a lot better. I could sit here all day talking about the noir aesthetic, the music, and how influential this game's style and idea were for video games coming forward, but I think you get the idea. Let's talk about the gameplay. You'll hear a lot of people calling BioShock and games like this immersive sims. I hate this term because it doesn't really tell you anything from just its name, but genres in general, especially now that games have become so complex and intricate, are pointless. An immersive sim is a video game genre that emphasizes player choice. Its core defining traits are the use of simulated systems that respond to a variety of player actions, a broad array of player abilities, creative solutions to problems, and gameplay beyond what has been explicitly designed by the developer. Now, I don't want to call BioShock dumb, because that would get me laughed out of my sophisticated gamer club, but let's look at all of these points one by one and analyze whether BioShock can even technically be called an immersive sim. Player choice is something that I'll get into later, but safe to say the developers called BioShock themselves a game about not really having a choice, so that one fails to begin with, by definition. Fuck you. Simulated systems that respond to a variety of player actions. Well, I guess there's puddles that you can shock, and oil spills that you can burn, and that one guy that shoots cans at you, and you can just throw them back. You can hack some turrets here and there, but there's no stealth, really. You can definitely have a build, but you can have any build because you can just buy everything, so let's just call this one a maybe for now. A broad array of player abilities. Guns, plasmids, tonics and hacking for the most part, but tonics are really just stats, so that one doesn't count, and hacking only helps you with one enemy type. There's a lot of the rest, but is that really broad? Creative solutions to problems. Well, you can definitely make baddies fight each other within rage. You can set the guy on fire, or you can set his feet on fire. But none of it is as effective as use gun on man, so I can't really give it this one either. Gameplay beyond what has been explicitly designed by the developer. There's this audio log here that has the code for this lock, but I'm also a master at laying pipe, so I guess we can put the kinda on here too. But wait a second, it says unintended by the developer, and this hack button was put on by something that you could call a developer, so actually no points. You can tell that I'm struggling to find mechanics that are not just a means of shooting stuff better. Even the camera mechanic is just there so you do more damage. So what's that score in the end? Like 1 out of 5 and not 1 full point? I guess we can't really call this an immersive sim now, can we? But don't worry, I have the perfect genre for BioShock. You wanna know what it is? It's a boomer shooter. Think about it, you run at land speed record pace. You have the classics, melee, pistol, shotgun, RPG and magic. You find ammo and health on the ground. You need keys to unlock doors. There's levels, and the corpses stay on the ground so you know where you've been. Yeah, it's a boomer shooter, but that's maybe a bit too simple, because to be fair, there's more to BioShock than just running around shooting things, right? Hacking is shit, okay? It's sometimes impossible. Sometimes you don't get that one piece that you need fast enough to be able to save yourself. Sometimes you don't have the pieces you need for the route that you took. I know there's a bunch of tonics that you can take to make it way easier, but I had to use those slots for more wrench damage, so give me a break. And what even gain? Like $5 of the health pack? But it's still more expensive than the one you get on the wall, especially if you hack that instead. I don't know, man, I don't like the hacking minigame. You can craft stuff a bit later on, but it's just more bullets for the most part. There's gambling. But you're capped on cash. I don't know, it can't put a pot on someone's head and steal from them in this. You can't put all your points into swimming and then fuck yourself over later when you need points into poison resistance. It's just not built for that. And it doesn't have to be. BioShock is decent at what it is, shooting stuff. It's satisfying to zap a guy into one shot with your crossbow. It's fun to just blast them with the shotgun by itself. It's fun to go for a bloodbath armor wrench build and just whack everything over the head while pressing F at fixed intervals. Yeah, it's like a dance.
Fly away, little moth! Fly!
Then you go to the clown and get more juice and do it all over again. I had so much money and ammo just sitting on the ground because I was capped on both, because wrench doesn't have ammo, it's free. But look at all this power that I could have had. But then you play on Survivor and you don't find any ammo, and you die over and over until you get the wrench working properly later on. So you have to use the weapons, but then you fight one Big Daddy, and it takes everything you have, and you still have to save and cheese it with the wrench and evades for half an hour, and... Sorry. The other gameplay element that is fundamental to BioShock, and your only real choice, is the little sister. These bad boys going around looking menacing are docile teddy bears, and they won't hurt you if you don't hurt their lollies. But you need the little sisters for Adam to buy more plasmids and HP capacity and stuff, so this is where you make your first choice. Fight the Big Daddy and spend a whole lot of resources to kill it, or don't. Say you do fight it because it's a video game, so you fight it, then you have the choice of rescuing the little sister or harvesting it. Now, there is one aspect of this that was done completely right, and more games should follow suit. Harvesting the little sister nets you way more Adam than saving her. Sure, if you save them you get the occasional gift, and it does compensate a bit, but it's still overall worse for your power level to save them, and that's how a good guy, bad guy choice should be made. It should be more difficult to be the good guy. Sure, you can stop yourself from doing horrible things to kids, but you'll be weaker for it. Being the bad guy should be easier, but not as rewarding. All that being said, while the game systems themselves are fine, the morality is kind of shallow. There's no in-between. Without spoiling anything, in the good ending, you're basically the Messiah, come to Earth to save us sinners from ourselves, and in the bad ending, you're nuclear Hitler. And for the record, the developers didn't even plan for multiple endings in this, because it was supposed to be a game about agency in video games and not really having a choice, but I'll get into that next.
Atlas is a friend of the parasite. Don't be a friend of Atlas.
BioShock's story is very interesting, but not by itself, and not in the game per se. The writing is top-notch, with flowery dialogue and amazing voice acting, but a lot of it is said through radio chat with the few characters that you interact with, and through audio logs that you can find scattered throughout the maps. The rest can be pieced together through the amazing background storytelling. If you pay close enough attention, you can actually see in real time how different problems coalesced and crumbled the city from the ground up. But all of this is standard for video games, so what makes this interesting then? It's the layers and the presentation. On the surface, BioShock is just the ending chapter to the story of Rapture, a utopian city envisioned by Andrew Ryan. Ryan believed that a man should be
entitled to the sweat of his brow.
So, after being severely disappointed with both the collectivism of Russian communism and the hand-holding of American capitalism, he used his power and wealth to devise and create a separate location strictly for the elite, somewhere no one would be able to get in the way of progress and a man enjoying the fruits of his labor. Andrew adhered to Randian... Wait a minute. Andrew Ryan? Ayn Rand? They're gonna laugh at me at the book club again. Randian objectivist philosophy, so everyone should always be looking out for number one, which is oneself. Combined with the exclusivist nature of Rapture itself, with only the elite being able to enter and make a name for themselves, this did initially lead to great technological and medical progress and prosperity. The high levels of competition meant that everyone had to do their best just to stay afloat. So all services from fishing to entertainment and cosmetic surgery were top-notch. The lack of laws and regulations meant that scientists could dabble into some questionable subjects like eugenics and human experimentation. One of the great and somehow accidental inventions of Rapture was Adam, a substance found in a type of sea slug discovered by Bridget Tannenbaum when it bit and healed the long-time crippled hand of a docks worker. By the aforementioned human experimentation, she also discovered that young girls could host these sea slugs within their own bodies, causing them to produce vastly more Adam than they would normally yield. This would later be used to create plasmids and tonics, serums capable of altering human DNA itself, leading to supernatural powers, or able to change the person's looks and build, leading to an even bigger gap between the truly elite and the now de facto lower classes of this new objectivist society. So how much of what I've just said is explicitly said in BioShock? Well, most of it, but not exactly explicitly, and this is where the genius of storytelling, in my opinion, comes in. Eugenics, classism, socialism, communism, religion, isolationism, competition, body modification, supernatural powers, objectivism versus realism. These are just some of the subjects mentioned and seen through a playthrough of BioShock, and all in just an 8 to 12 hour game. Now, that does imply that you should go pick up a book or two on some of the subjects that may raise your interest. But it is 2025. Paper isn't exactly on good raps nowadays. And Subway Surfers has been out for a while. But you don't have to feel bad, because the game doesn't feel bad either. All these nuances and layers can be ignored completely. A lot of these subjects are hidden behind audio logs that you have to deliberately go looking for in hidden rooms. I mean, sure, you as the player can stop and admire the blood writings on the wall and extrapolate the meaning of life from this ad for Tootsie Pops, but Jack here, if he were real, would not bat an eye at any of the subtle clues to the downfall of a civilization. He'd be excited at the candy bar he found in the trash can first, and then think about the next one second. You can make this game as obtuse and complicated, or as brain-dead and straightforward as you want. I, for one, think Andrew Ryan is a well-written and nuanced villain, while Frank Fontaine is a one-dimensional shit Saturday morning cartoon bad guy, and some people disagree with me. And all of that is okay, because we're all different, and we all value different things, and if we all just stopped looking at our differences as reasons to hate each other, and instead treated them as individual complexities that make society more interesting, then the world would be a better place. As previously mentioned, after Jack has his unfortunate accident, he swims to safety, not questioning why this lighthouse is all the way in the middle of the fucking Atlantic Ocean. He has a presentation of Rapture as this utopian dreamland, and then immediately feels the bitter taste of false advertising. He gets saved by a nice man under the name of Atlas, and in return all he asks is that would you kindly also help him save his family from this accursed city. And from this point on, until close to the end, it's all pretty straightforward, and there's honestly not much to talk about. You meet some of the big names in Rapture like Steinman, Cohen, Tannenbaum, while seeing how these aspects of society collapsed under their own weight. You also get to hear a lot about Frank Fontaine, one of the two names that came to power as rebels against Ryan's objectivist worldview. In the later years of Rapture, when it was already on a downward spiral, Andrew started being more extreme in his hatred for the lower classes. He would endearingly call them the parasites, and went as far as even cutting all connection to the outside world so as to not have his city influenced by them anymore. This led to Fontaine creating a very lucrative business, smuggling goods from the surface to the needy of Rapture, who would not be getting any handouts from the elitist high-class society. This was soon also forbidden by Andrew Ryan as the one law that Rapture would ever enforce, and the punishment for the smugglers would be death. During all this chaos, the second head of the revolution, Atlas, would try to rally the lower classes and bring civil war to Rapture. But our protagonist Jack doesn't really care about all of this. All he cares about is getting the fuck out of here. So you try to help Atlas with his family problems so as to get help with your resurfacing one. There's honestly not much to talk about apart from the reveals and the ending, so I'll slap a spoiler warning right here if you've been living under a rock and never played this game before, and I'll see you around here for conclusions. Around the halfway point, you have the opportunity to save Atlas's family from the submarine, but that scoundrel Andrew Ryan blows it up, so the job changes from saving his family to straight up revenge. You get more information about the leaders of Rapture, like Tannenbaum getting more attached to the little ones, and Cohen being a shit artist, and eventually you do get to Ryan for one of the big reveals.
He's come to murder me. In the end, what separates a man from a slave? Money? Power? No. A man chooses. A slave obeys. You think you have memories. A farm. A family. An airplane. A crash. And then this place. Was there really a family? Did that airplane crash? Or was it hijacked? Forced down. Forced down by something less than a man, something bred to sleepwalk through life until they are activated by a simple phrase spoken by their kindly master.
So Jack hasn't exactly been who we or himself thought he was. You find a recording from Dr. Suchong about all the experiments he did on an embryo to artificially grow it faster and make it stronger. You can also kind of extrapolate about who your real family is through some more audio logs from Andrew and Jasmine, a dancer at the Red Light District. After demonstrating his theory on man versus slave with suicide by way of slave, Atlas also reveals his true face and that he was Fontaine all along.
Nice work, Bio.
Now, I'm not a genius or anything, and I didn't see Atlas is Fontaine coming at all, but Atlas being the bad guy was kind of a no-brainer. He's not so subtle, change in tone, his lack of care for anything except revenge, the nonchalant way in which he calls you a moron for saving little sisters. Maybe not mastermind level villain material off the bat, but you could definitely put a betrayal timer on screen after that little sister interaction, 100%. So you take a stroll to find a way of ridding yourself of your slave gene, while he has his Mojo Jojo rants about taking over the city Spider-Man and all that jazz. Then he discovers the joys of getting high on his own supply, and then you have a final boss fight. Is that the final boss fight? Virgin Manhattan? You throw bees at him and he's like, no, don't sting me. Then he needs a little nap. They just got to him a little bit. It's a joke. Even on Survivor, you can dodge everything so easily, but it's all worth it for the kill scene. And this is what it was all building up to, a game about player agency. Like, sure, Jack was being controlled by the would you kindly phrase, but you? Yeah, you, behind the monitor with the Cheeto dust on your belly and faint smell of piss. You were only controlled by wanting to play the game. There was never any choice. Well, except for the little sisters, which control the endings, by the way. The one where you save them is pretty sweet, but...
And you refused it.
In the other one, you're just literally Nuclear Skeletor, so just don't. You don't even need the Atom, honestly. Game is not that hard once you get used to the plasmids and weapons, but it is very grindy on Survivor if you want to not use the Vita Chambers either, but getting off this tangent. The game is a pretty good exploration of agency video games, especially in a narrative-driven game like this. It's very similar to one of the greats, Spec Ops The Line, though I think that one does it a bit better. Let's wrap this up. The remastered version also has some additional content in the form of 3 challenge maps. Getting all of the achievements for them will test your creativity, and having more of those kinds of puzzles in the main game would have made it a fairly decent puzzle shooter. They're great for after the game to test your knowledge of all the game systems and mechanics, well, except for the last one. That one will only test your patience and ADD. 15 minutes? Are you insane? The director's commentary that you can find scattered throughout the levels is also an excellent insight on what they were going for and the challenges they had making it. It was made for the remaster 10 years later, so they talk about Infinite a lot as well. BioShock 2? Never heard of her. Is she hot? They don't mention it in the commentary either, so I don't know what you're talking about. BioShock is great, and it holds up fairly well. Definitely worth a replay, especially if you're an avid reader. This will open up a whole lot of subjects to immerse yourself in afterwards, without completely immersing itself up its own ass. It's a classic for a reason, and even a jaded piece of shit like me with no nostalgia for it can still appreciate it. It's short too if you play with mouse and keyboard and 5 fingers on each hand, so a great weekend companion amongst all these 1000-hour games that have been popping up recently. Oh god, gamers really are just a pile of games that they'll get to at some point. I have some organizing to do. I'll see you next time. The rest can be pieced together through the amazing background storytelling. If you pay close attention, seriously?